AITA for considering divorce after my wife suggested sending our son to a conversion camp. My wife, 44F, and I, 45M, have been married for 14 years. We're a typical suburban family in most ways. 2 kids, a house in a nice neighborhood, steady jobs, and a relatively stable marriage, or so I thought. We have a 16-year-old son, Noah, and a 12-year-old daughter. I've always thought we were both dedicated to creating a loving, safe home for our kids. Now, though, I'm starting to question everything I thought I knew. A little background on us. My wife and I come from different worlds in some ways. I grew up in a fairly liberal household where things like sexuality weren't really discussed, but there was a general sense of acceptance. My parents never talked about it explicitly, but they instilled a belief in treating people with respect and love. My wife, however, grew up in a stricter, more religious home. Her parents held some conservative values, and although she drifted away from certain beliefs as she grew up, I wonder now if they still lingered somewhere in her mind. Over the years, we've had our fair share of disagreements, as all couples do. I won't lie, there have been arguments about how to raise the kids, what to prioritize financially, and a lot of other little things that probably wouldn't even stick out in memory if not for this current situation. But none of these fights, even the ones that felt like they had weight at the time, ever shook me the way this has. A year ago, Noah came out as gay. Looking back, I can see signs that he was working up to it for a while. He was withdrawn at times and would get nervous when certain topics came up, and there was this underlying tension that I couldn't quite put my finger on. When he finally sat us down and told us he was gay, it was a surprise. I won't pretend I wasn't initially shocked. It's one thing to think you're prepared for anything as a parent, and quite another when reality actually hits. But after the surprise settled, I knew that my job was to love him, support him, and be the father he deserves. So, I told him that I loved him, and I tried to make sure he knew that nothing would change that. My wife, well, she didn't react the same way. She looked stunned, almost like she'd been hit with a physical blow. Her face went pale, and for a moment, I could see she was struggling to find words. I assumed she just needed time to process, and I didn't want to push her. People process big news differently after all, but as days turned into weeks, it became clear that she wasn't handling this as a phase of shock or sadness that would pass. She would make small comments here and there that unsettled me. Things like, maybe he's just confused, or he's still so young. He can't know for sure. I try to brush these comments off as her way of adjusting, telling myself that she'd come around eventually. I thought she just needed time to understand. Looking back, I wonder if I was just hoping she would change because the alternative was so much darker than I wanted to believe. It came to a head about a week ago. We were discussing Noah's future, talking about college, his potential career options, and the typical dreams and hopes we have for our kids. Out of nowhere, she casually mentioned that she'd been looking into conversion therapy camps and thought it might be the best option for Noah. She said that he just hasn't been shown the right path yet, and that if we didn't help him get back on track, he might make decisions that would ruin his life. She genuinely believed that this camp would fix him. I was speechless. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. The thought of conversion therapy, even hearing her say the words, made me feel sick. For a moment, I just stared at her, trying to understand if she was joking or if this was some nightmare I hadn't woken up from yet. I knew I had to say something, and I needed her to understand just how wrong this was. So I told her, as calmly as I could, that those camps are known for using abusive, manipulative, and downright brutal tactics. I told her that countless people have come out of those places traumatized, and some don't even make it out at all. But she wouldn't budge. She accused me of enabling Noah's confusion by refusing to do what's best for him. She kept repeating that if I loved Noah, I would help her fix him. The more she talked, the colder and more detached she sounded. I realized, as she continued, that this wasn't a temporary thing for her. This wasn't just some knee-jerk reaction or a phase. She genuinely believed that our son's sexual orientation was something that needed to be corrected. I felt a wave of anger rise up in me, anger mixed with a deep, overwhelming sadness. Here was the person I'd chosen to build a life with, the mother of my children, and she was looking at our son not as a person, but as a problem to be solved. I told her flat out that I would never send my son somewhere that would damage him, mentally and physically, just to fit some outdated idea of what's normal. I tried to explain that Noah being gay isn't something that needs fixing, but she didn't listen. In her mind, she was the one who was right, and I was the one who couldn't see what was best for our child. I spent the next few days in a state of numb shock. I couldn't look at her without feeling this deep pit in my stomach, a mix of anger and disappointment that I'd never experienced before. Every time I saw her, I felt this growing resentment. I found myself questioning everything, wondering if I'd been blind to this side of her all these years. I was grappling with the realization that maybe, just maybe, I didn't really know her at all. If I'm being honest, I don't even know if I love her anymore. The way she spoke about our son, the way she dismissed his identity like it was some illness that could be cured, disgusted me on a level I can't even fully explain. It broke something in me, something I'm not sure can be fixed. Noah has his whole life ahead of him, and being gay is going to come with its own challenges. The world is still far from perfectly accepting, and people like my wife, people who think the way she does, only make it harder for people like him. The thought that I would be contributing to that kind of harm, that I'd be complicit by staying silent or standing by her side, feels unbearable. Part of me thinks maybe I should try to keep the family together, at least for our daughter's sake. She's only 12, and she loves both of us so much. She's a sensitive kid, and I know a divorce would hit her hard. She's already close with Noah, and I can't imagine what it would do to her to see our family split apart. The thought of putting her through that kind of pain makes me feel like the worst father in the world. But if I stay, am I betraying Noah? Would I be choosing comfort over my son's well-being? I can't ignore the look on his face when he came out to us. I remember the fear and vulnerability in his eyes, the way he was practically trembling as he waited for us to react. I promised him that he had nothing to worry about, that I'd always be there for him, no matter what. How can I keep that promise if I'm living with someone who wants to change him, to hurt him in ways I can barely bring myself to imagine? In the days since that conversation, I found myself drifting further and further from her, both emotionally and physically. We don't talk as much as we used to. Every time I look at her, all I see is the person who would willingly send our son to a place that could destroy him. I don't know how to move past that. I don't even know if I want to. I've been researching legal options, trying to understand what a divorce might mean for us. I've looked into custody arrangements and talked to a few close friends who've been supportive. They all say I'm doing the right thing by protecting Noah, but they also remind me that leaving will change everything, not just for him, but for our daughter too. The thought of ripping my kids' lives apart over this, it makes me feel like I'm failing them both. I finally sat down with Noah, and we had a long, honest talk. I told him that no matter what happens, I love him and that he doesn't need to be afraid of being himself. He seemed relieved, but he also looked so sad, like he was carrying the weight of our family's problems on his shoulders. He even said, "I didn't mean to make things harder for you guys," and hearing that nearly broke me. No child should feel like they're a burden to their parents for simply being who they are. Right now, I'm just trying to keep it together for my kids. I don't have all the answers yet, but I know one thing for sure. I can't let anyone hurt my son, not even his mother. So, Reddit, AITA for considering divorce? Would I be the asshole for tearing our family apart because I can't live with someone who thinks conversion therapy is okay? I never wanted any of this, and I don't want to lose my family. But I'm not sure I can keep pretending to be okay with this either.